Jay here for Paddock. This is the Paddock Podcast, and I've got two absolute titans of the Manchester United fan base with me today. We've got Mr. Joe Smith.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Bit too cheery, you.
Why?
Because we lost 3-0 to Bournemouth. What's the matter with you?
I didn't get loads of sleep last night.
Did you know? Oh,
so I've had too many coffees, and now I feel like my brain stem feels like it's sort of drowning in, I don't know, pain.
You've had a busy weekend, you, haven't you?
Busy weekend.
You was DJing, weren't you? My fellow DJ.
Wait, you DJing?
DJing on Friday night.
Why am I finding this out?
I know, man. Do you know what I mean?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a man of many... Well,
what's your DJ name?
Slim Pickens.
Slim Pickens.
Can't picture you on the decks.
I wasn't necessarily on the decks as such, but I was certainly near them.
He scratches and everything.
I was scratching.
Yeah, scratching.
I think it might be cracked.
Scratching your back sack or...
I didn't let it get into the performance.
Also on this podcast, we've not just got Workshop's finest DJ since...
Probably the ball bloke from Corner House.
Brilliant.
I hate the way you said "ooh" to pretend that there was this long list.
That's part of the joke. We've also got Mr. Ronaldo Brown. How are you, son?
I'm not that good, man. After the weekend, it's been a bad weekend across the board. Obviously, United result, bad results for me in the NFL as well. It's just been pretty shit, really.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Ronaldo plays backup quarterback for the Jaguars.
Well, who's your
bad results for you?
Yeah, who's your NFL team?
The Giants bought, which means that
Is that New York?
Yes.
Right.
I hate the Cowboys more than anything, and they won.
The Cowboys, that's Dallas, isn't
That's
it?
a classic
Cowboys,
rivalry,
yeah.
isn't it? You know, New York and Texas, two states that are about 50
Is that like the
miles
derby?
apart.
Is that like the local? Is that like when Eccles play West?
Yeah. That's what Newcastle fans want you to think the distance to Sunderland is. They're like, we're not even right. We're not nearby. We're not the same. Yeah, you are. Fucking Dallas and New York have got a rivalry.
We've done that, though, haven't we? We did Dallas and New York.
We did
in the summer.
Yeah, we did.
Do you know what I mean?
What are we talking about today, Jay?
We're going to be talking about Erik Ten Hag. Yeah. Back him or sack him is the debate because it seems that pundits are coming out and some are going like, get rid of him, losing at 3-0 at home to Bournemouth. You've lost, is it 11 games this season?
You just grown a hair there.
What is it?
Let me grab that.
Go on.
Okay, now.
It might be a bit of fluff off me Parker.
I'm going to say, you've been to the passport office today, Jay. What have you been doing?
You're actually
That looks like the hair.
Where's my single?
You're a bald
Have I got a
fraud.
single?
You're a bald.
Right, can you see it? Hang on a minute.
Hold it in front of the black of this man.
Yeah, can you see?
Yeah, you can. Look.
Can't be bald with a strand like that.
No, I think that's off me Parker. That's
No,
Parker,
it's
that.
not. You've been getting off with a man who looks like Ted Dancer.
Do you know what, right? I shouldn't even say this.
Hey,
I shouldn't even say this on a live because she'll kill me.
I was going to say...
But I remember once me and Mrs. got together, right? We had a row because I had glitter on my face and she's like, where have you got glitter from?
Yeah.
And my daughter, after we were rowing for about 10 minutes, went, Mummy, you've got glitter on. And I got the glitter off her.
All I'm saying, it's better me finding that than your missus.
Yeah, the glitter's bad.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where's
so
that
my
hair
missus
from?
found that. Do you know what I mean? Then I'd be getting the old bread knife through the chest for me dinner.
Oh, yeah, that old thing.
That'd be,
Jesus.
that'd take,
You know how it is.
that takes some force. That.
Anyway, enough about my hair, or my lack of it. Let's talk about Erik Ten Hag, because on one side of the argument, this season has been borderline disastrous. We're all but out of the Champions League. We're not sat at the Carabao Cup at home to Newcastle, who, if anyone forgets, we beat in the final last season. We've lost to City, we've lost to Arsenal, we've lost to Spurs, we've lost to Crystal Palace, we've lost to Brighton, we've lost to Bournemouth. Am I missing it? Oh, yeah, then there's all the cup games as well. We've lost to Newcastle, we've lost to Bayern Munich, we've lost to Copenhagen. I mean, Galatasaray, of course, how can I forget? It's not been great. The flip side is the manager did well last season, top 3 finish and a trophy. We have had injuries, not loads and loads of injuries at times, but important ones. Lisandro Martinez, I'm thinking of you. We have had some good results. He has had manager of the month. We are still, despite all these problems, not that far out of it in terms of the league position and points. Where you're looking at top 4, you go, okay, you're 6 points behind City in December. That isn't the end of the world, if I'm being kind. And there is still that slim chance, slim pickings, that tomorrow night we could go through. So, where do you stand? I'll start with you. Are you still confident in this manager?
I think it's been well documented, and everyone should be aware that the issues are far beyond just the manager alone. But it has gotten to a point with certain things on the pitch where you can't put the blame solely above him when you're seeing structural and like tactical problems and kind of baffling like personnel choices that are leading to like bad results, and it's one of those where we've spoke about the kind of the opening of our midfield and how the number 6 and a single pivot seems to have so much responsibility shouldered on him in transition. We don't have the player to do that.
Yeah.
We don't have a Declan Rice. We don't have a Rodri. We put in people like Mainu, who's a young 18-year-old, Amrabat, who's unable to do it, Casemiro, who's aging to cover these large spaces where he's playing with like the likes of Bruno and McTominay that are just bolting forward and getting in the opposition box and then leaving him isolated. Those are structural problems that I feel like everyone is realising. And you're asking me, am I still confident in the manager? The problem is, a lot of us that are watching the games aren't managers, don't have the same kind of cachet as he does. We don't have the UEFA B or whatever it is that you have. And he's not seeming to fix these problems that we're seeing, where he's like, why are we so easy to counter against? Why are we so easy to transition against? Why are we conceding so many chances? Why are we so exposed all the time? And it's the fact that I came into the Bournemouth game thinking that there was a chance that we don't win, because I knew Bournemouth were in a bit of form, but I also knew that they had forwards that could cause us problems if you give them space. Because at the end of the day, Premier League players and Premier League clubs, you have players that can hurt you. And I looked at them and I was like, if we're as open as we have been, they're going to cause us a problem. So it didn't surprise me that they did. And I think the fact that he's not kind of become more pragmatic and kind of solidified that area of the pitch, even though it's not worked time and time again, it has worried me in terms of my belief in him as much. Even though we've gone through so many managers, it's just a case of, what's the definition of insanity? It's like doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result, and we're not. Because even in the games that we are winning, there's been concerning factors in terms of the chances we're giving other teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with any of those comments, to be honest with you, Ronnie. Joe,
yeah,
I'm going to get to the comments in a minute. First of all, what I hear from your good self. You're the kind of fan, I think, who tends to get behind players and the manager, sort of, a bit further than a lot of fans will. When a lot of fans are going, nah, I'm done with this guy, you tend to go, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, let's stick with him. Is that your feeling towards Erik ten Hag? Because I've always felt like that with you.
More so than ever.
Right. No, I love that. There's nothing wrong with it.
It's not an ideological thing that I sort of have to impose, things onto that I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's just how I feel.
No,
and I know you weren't suggesting that.
I think it's a commendable trait. Anyway, I see it.
But like, even I thought I realised at the end of Solskjaer's time at United that it seemed like the best idea for him to go. I get that. I wasn't like, no, I can't believe it. Where's this come from? I'm not deluded, but I do think, in particular, Ten Hag, of all the sack and start again managers that we've had, he would be the stupidest one to sack, or it'd be the stupidest decision to sack him of all of them, because he's got the fewest obvious weaknesses that I think will eventually tell. Like, we've been through this before, but Van Gaal, in all reality, was sort of 10 years or so past his peak. Jose Mourinho, you could argue, in terms of his footballing style, was a few years sort of behind the rest of where Europe was going at the time. He managed to win another Premier League title with Chelsea a couple of years before he joined us, which was amazing. But tactically, he was being left behind by the likes of Klopp in Germany at the time, or he'd just come to England by Pep, by many others as well. And we got him for that sort of tail end of his real managing a big team era. And then Ole, the obvious weaknesses were there in terms of his experience, and was he tactically ready to take on the bigger boys. But Ten Hag doesn't obviously have any of those weaknesses. He plays a modern style of football, or likes to play a modern style of football, or has done in the past. He's not someone that's sort of jaded by years of sackings and cycles repeating themselves like Jose had been. He's not past his best. None of these things. And he's not got anything except a track record of success everywhere he's ever been. He's never failed. He's never been, he's not at the heights of a Jose or a Van Gaal, but he's, not been sort of scarred by those dark times either. And then he comes in, and we're seeing the same things we saw with all of those guys. I think the madness and the insanity would be to sack him.
Yeah.
That's the cycle repeating itself. And I accept your point on the pitch, but I think he's almost, he mentioned it in the press conference today.
That wasn't me advocating.
No, I'm not saying you were, yeah.
No, it's obvious you weren't.
No.
But I think in the presser today, he came out again and said, the person, he doesn't want to slag off those who are playing. So instead, he's praising those who aren't, if you know what I mean. Like he's saying, you look at, someone said, what's the difference between this season and last season in terms of results and controlling games and performances? And he said, look at the team I had last season. I know he never had his full strength team, but he said the back four, it was settled. The midfield, it was much more settled. It's been so unsettled so far this season. And another thing that's been unsettled, in sort of deceptively so, is United's results. The fact that we're 9 wins, 6 losses in the league. Like 4 wins. If you went on a run that was 4 draws and a win, you can call that unbeaten in 5.
Yeah.
If those same 5 games are win, loss, win, loss, win, you've got 2 more points, but you've never been undefeated for more than 1 game.
Yeah.
And United are in this pattern where it's like, actually, points-wise, same as Tottenham.
No.
They
Because they won yesterday. They got above us.
3 points behind Tottenham. We're ahead of Newcastle. We're 6 points behind City, which obviously isn't ideal. And I know we're 10 points off the top now. But the league table doesn't look as bad as it feels like it's been, because it's never been, United on a bit of a run. It's been we're either winning or losing, but they're coming like one after the other. So I think that's hurt him as well, that last season I think we had less points or the same points as we're on now. But it's felt much less inconsistent last season, because it wasn't like up, down, up, down. It was a bit more like that. So I don't think that's helped either, but I just think that sacking the manager would be such an obvious and unhelpful thing to do.
Yeah.
I think they're being on the same points as last season. I don't know if that's necessarily a positive.
No, it's not.
Do you know what I mean?
Because last season we beat City, we beat Arsenal at this point. Not City, sorry, Liverpool.
Yeah.
And we haven't beaten anyone big this season. Chelsea are 10th, and everyone's beating them. And I know it's a name, and I said that the other day, it's still Chelsea, and people, we beat Chelsea, and I've done it. But let's be honest here. Chelsea are not a top 4 side. They're not Arsenal, Liverpool, City, or even a Newcastle.
Or a Spurs.
Or a Spurs even. They're just not. And we haven't done that. Last season, that win against Liverpool was so galvanising and encouraging and uplifting. It was amazing. And even the game against Spurs was one of the best games I've been to at Old Trafford, genuinely. The atmosphere, the performance, it was just mint. And the result against Arsenal were flying. We beat them.
Yeah.
And it's mint. Yeah. Now, beating Arsenal is so much better. I know this is an obvious thing to say, but I'll say it anyway. It's so much better than beating Brentford or beating Luton.
Absolutely.
Like, it feels different. It hits different. Scott McTominay getting you 2 late goals to beat Brentford is not the same as beating Manchester City or beating Arsenal or Liverpool. It just ain't. So that's the problem I've got, and I understand what you point about the points and everything. Is I've not yet had that big game this season.
That's true.
Like after the Liverpool game last season, I would have ran through a brick wall for Erik ten Hag. I was like, this guy, because he'd had a bit of grief because of the first 2 results. Listen, he's just given us a midnight. The players believe in him. He's new. Let's get behind him. Ditto after the Arsenal game, the City game, the Carabao Cup final. It's like, look, this guy's we've not had that yet.
And you need a bit of the other one as well, the Barca game. Even though it was a Europa
Great
League,
point.
Not
Great
even
point.
an official round, it was a qualifying round for the round. That felt like a big night where you go, hang on a sec, they're top of La Liga.
Yeah.
And we've been better than them in the new camp, if we're honest, and we've got a draw.
Yeah.
And we're better than them at Old Trafford. What's this?
That's like
they carry a lot of weight, those games.
Pride filling, isn't it? Pride fulfilling. You come into Old Trafford, you get done.
So exactly. So you're going from that to thinking that this season there's been this kind of. You're saying same points, so you can't exactly call it regression, but it feels like it. Because obviously we're saying that we're on the same points, but we did have a lot of adversity.
I do think we have regressed, by the way. I'm not saying we haven't just because.
Well, it's like even if you look at it through
the
the prism of corresponding fixtures from last season, City at home we won.
Yeah.
This season we got battered. What else is there?
That's the
Bournemouth
home game though, isn't it? That's another thing.
Bournemouth. We didn't. I presume we beat Bournemouth comfortably last season.
So it's under Ten Hag. We've had these home wins against the big sides, and I
Yeah.
think that's what a lot of Ten Hag's criticism has come of, the lack of away wins that we've had at the top 9. Was it the top 8?
Top 9.
Top 9 are.
Well, that's counting, isn't it?
Our record's horrendous.
So yeah, it's.
Do you know what I mean? But
it is bad. Like there's no denying that.
Which last season we finished 3rd. We got a trophy. You think we've got a couple of players in that Ten Hag's requested. He's a year into the job. I know everything surrounding the club, the ownership, the kind of Glazer circus isn't at all the best regime for any manager to perform under. But when we're going off what's solely happening on the pitch, it feels like, and it's annoying because like what you've said, it's too back and forth. It's almost like opposite extremes. At most, like we either go on a game where we win a couple of games, but then we have like an embarrassing loss, and it feels like one step forward, 2 steps back, because however way you want to slice it, a 3-0 loss, which could have been 4-0, with the VAR check at the end, is away at home to Bournemouth at Old Trafford, is one of the worst results that I think we've had under the Ten Hag tenure. It just is, however way you slice it. There's no chance in hell that team should be beating us 3-0, 4-0 at home. And I think it's almost the way we lose when we do lose that kind of outweighs the 2-3 results that we do get before we have like a game like this.
But do you think... I want to get into that. And want to go into...
I mean, we'll get into the comments in a minute, by the way, as well.
But before that, let's hear a little word from our sponsors, Jay.
Yeah?
Manscaped.
The leaders in below the waist grooming.
Well, I mean, it's not... The thing with Manscaped is, you can think, the leaders in below the waist grooming, millions of men trust them, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's just rest on our laurels this year, shall we?
Yeah, it'd be easy to do that. They could do what United have done and gone, we just won a trophy, just finished top 3.
Yeah.
We've got, millions of men worldwide. We've got the performance package 4.0. But we don't need to worry about it.
No. That's where Manscaped and Man United differ, because Manscaped are actually ran properly.
Right.
And they've gone out and created the Lawnmower 5.0.
Oh my God!
Just in time for
Christmas.
5 is even better.
I've been waiting for the 5.0. I've been waiting for the Lawnmower Ultra.
Yeah.
For so long.
And with Paddock,
honestly,
if you use the code Paddock at checkout, you get 20%
Paddock
off
20
and free shipping. Paddock 20, at checkout, you get 20% off and free shipping. What else is in the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, Jay?
What isn't in it, eh?
Well,
this Christmas, my lad. You've got the Weed Whacker 2.0 for nose and ear hair trimming, because men of a certain age, me, we need that. You've got the Boxers 2.0. You've got the Shears 3.0 nail grooming kit, yeah?
Oh, yes.
It's not just nail clippers. This is a nail grooming kit, yeah? Plus, you've got the shed travel bag. You've got all that good stuff. You've got everything you need for it, yeah? You get 20% off. You get free shipping. It's Christmas. What better way, yeah, to ingratiate yourself with your father-in-law by giving him the 5.0 Ultra package?
It won't hurt with the bloody mother-in-law as well.
Exactly.
If he's been grooming
exactly.
Downstairs,
Do you know what I mean? You know how awkward Christmas dinner can be?
Yeah.
Well, you can just make it a lot better when you start dishing out Manscaped products across the table. Yeah. So go and check out the link in the description. Use the code Paddock20, 20% off. You know what you're getting: the Weed Whacker, the crop toner, the shed travel bag, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. We've been waiting for this for so long. It's now here. Your balls will thank you this Christmas. You can go on, what is it? Sort out your sack and your back and your crack or something, innit?
Do you know what I mean?
Eh?
Sack or back?
Yeah.
What about your crack?
Nice. Nicely done. Yes, and a big thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring this podcast.
What did you just say before, Ronaldo? What did you just say before we spoke about that?
I talked about the kind of the opposite extremes of the United results, how when we do have a little bit of a decent performance, you have in a league where we might have back-to-back wins or go on a little run of not losing for a few games, we always almost blast those run of results with like an inexcusable loss. And it's like, and it almost feels like it undoes quite a lot of momentum, and it undoes like quite a lot of credit in the bank. And I think some people will see it as, it's just like a bit of an anomaly, and but at this point it's not. What it feels like is, even when we beat Chelsea and we beat Everton, for example, there were still warning signs in those games, even though we won. And it felt like if you don't show those up, we are going to get punished. It is the Premier League. Teams have quality. And we came to Bournemouth, the same issues. And in a game where your luck doesn't go your way, you get punished. And that's exactly what happened, because even we beat Everton 3-0, but it wasn't really a 3-0 game, was it? And you take the result, and sometimes winning games when you aren't playing exactly amazingly well for the majority of the 90, you take that, and that can be a sign of a good team. But to me, I felt like even when we've won games and drawn games, there's been structural problems over the past month and a half that haven't been addressed, and it seems as though it's going to get us caught out in a game where we might get by with a bit of individual quality and a bit of luck and a bit of variance, but on the odd day like that, we could be playing anyone, and if you're that open, you're going to get beat.
Just before you get into your comments, just go through some of the comments, bro, and then we'll get your thoughts, and then we'll go through some of the comments from quote-unquote pundits.
Yeah, Michael Dyson, who's been around for 22 months, thank you very much, Michael, says, when does the 12 Days of Paddock and fun festive Christmas theme start? Also, I wish life wasn't like being adrift on a vessel in a sea of tears.
Wednesday, was it Wednesday, innit?
Soon.
When is the 12 Days of Paddock? Did we do it leading up to Christmas Day, or is it?
It's usually the Christmas Day onwards.
Ah, right, sorry, I get confused.
What did Michael Dyson say?
He's adrift on a vessel in a sea of tears.
It really sucks the life out of you there.
It does, doesn't it?
It's poetic. I love a bit of flowery prose.
Is that why his surname's Dyson?
Why?
Because it sucks the life out of you.
No, all right, sorry.
That's good.
Yeah.
Joe Fairbrother, come up with a pun for that one, Ronaldo, says we have to stick by Ten Hag. The cycle can't continue.
I haven't got one. You put me on the spot there.
I think that's fair, brother.
I wish
Says hopefully
that's tough.
we will let him build his team and let him give him enough time, because I don't see who could replace him. Would you rather go out or go to the Europa? Definitely Europa.
Yeah, Europa, man. Like, come on. Let's face facts, right? If we win the Europa League, you'd be buzzing.
Yeah, it's hard to win. I would say, after the Champions League, Premier League and Champions League, I think Premier League 1, Champions League 2, I think Europa League is the third hardest trophy to win in Europe. Like, do you know what I mean? Of the ones United could be in.
Harder than the FA Cup?
I think so.
Yeah,
right, here's something, Jay.
I don't know, you know.
A Premier League team wins an English team wins the FA Cup every year.
Yeah.
You know, most years it's Sevilla that wins the Europa League.
I know, but you don't have a Manchester City usually, or a Liverpool or an Arsenal.
But you
in
also
the
don't
FA
have
Cup.
to, typically...
You are going to face...
Yes.
a very, very good team in the FA Cup, like one of the best teams in the world in the FA Cup. Sooner or later, you might get away with that in the Europa, but you don't.
I'll tell you what, though, the thing that you get in the Europa that you don't get in the FA Cup is it's single leg every time in the FA Cup. You can fluke a single win and you're through. In the Europa League, if we're playing Atletico Madrid like we did over 2 legs, you're probably going to get found out. I think it's close.
I think the styles. I think if you compare it to like boxing, I think Europa League and European football in general can be throw a little bit of a different span in the works than an FA Cup, because it seems as though we don't really know much about some of the kind of 4th, 5th best teams in like Serie A and whatever. But it's almost like you can get surprised by the fact that they do have elements of quality and different styles of playing and different systems that you might not be used to. And it's almost like, we're playing Atlanta.
Yeah.
Is it Atalanta?
Yeah, we played them. Was that in the Champions League?
Yeah.
The other way?
Also, I'm not saying I'd rather win the Europa League.
No, I know you're not.
By the way,
I think the
harder.
FA Cup's become so difficult for us.
Yeah,
like we've won it. Was it once in the last 13 years?
I prefer the FA Cup.
Or am I getting that wrong?
It's
2004 and then 2016.
Correct.
So since 2004, we won it once,
and
we've been in it every year.
Yeah.
And I think, like, we've been in the Europa League, I don't know, during that time, like 8 years, and we've won it once. So I know that's not exactly scientific.
Yeah.
And I understand your point. You can get, we had Barcelona last season. That's, the League of Champions and all the rest of it, Barcelona. I just feel like the FA Cup, because you are going to come up against either a Liverpool or a City or an Arsenal in a game that they will play their strongest team.
Yeah, they want to win that.
Like last season, the FA Cup final. Like, I know he actually ironically dropped his goalkeeper, but it was so hard, wasn't it, to beat them in that game. That's why I don't know, man. I understand your point. I think for me, the FA Cup's become really hard to win, and I get the Europa League gives you a Champions League next season, so it is that extra sort of carrot.
My only thing is with our league form and how difficult. I think I said to you earlier, I think the level of the Premier League has gone up quite a bit in terms of, I think the teams around 15th, 16th and above.
Like Bournemouth.
Are very much capable of taking points off any of the top teams on the right day.
Yeah.
And I think when you've got the Europa League thrown in the mix and how that kind of can affect your training and build up into your Premier League games on the Saturday, I think if you go into games, especially with how United have been so underwhelming and they almost can't afford to not be on it.
Yeah.
I think if you go into the weekend against the teams in the Premier League right now after a Europa League fixture, I think United might struggle.
Yeah, I can see that.
Let's talk about some of the quotes then, because we talk about backing and sacking the manager and who's with him and who's not. No surprising that the ex-Scousers are just giving us, ex-Liverpool players are giving him no backing, and the ex-United players are. Gary Neville's backing Erik Ten Hag. He said, there is no way they should change him this season. This idea of sacking him is absolute nonsense, and I would not be in favour of that. I know people say you can't blame the Glazers, but yeah, you can. Yeah, you can, because 10 years of failure and miserable recruitment comes down to the fact they have not got a sporting director or a proper head of recruitment in place. This is why this happens. Ultimately, managers look above them and think they haven't got anyone above them, so they might as well just do it themselves. This is all down to leadership. Also, the less talented Neville brother says, the first thing Manchester United can't do is sack the manager. They need to sort out from top to bottom, and the manager is the last thing they need to sort out. So the Neville brothers sticking together there, they're singing from the same song sheet. Saying that about the manager. Ronnie, you mentioned it earlier about the ownership. Joe, how much do you think the ownership comes into it? Because the one argument you always get from not just non-United fans, but from United fans is, I don't care who owns Manchester United, you should be able to beat Bournemouth at home, or you should be able to beat Brighton at home, or you should be able to beat Palace at home. Do you know, then when you have these bad results against teams that have a budget that's 1/10 the size of ours, or whatever they go, you can't just say it's the ownership, because you still should be winning these matches. Maybe you can if it's City, you can go, well, look at their owners and look at ours. There's a difference there. But it kind of falls a little bit short for some people when it is against these so-called lesser teams.
Every team loses against those lesser teams.
Yeah.
Like, at some point in the season, unless you're, like, going on one of your 100-point City, Liverpool seasons or whatever.
Which ain't happening this season.
Which ain't happening this season. They all drop points to smaller teams. That is, there's always going to be the squad cost. Oh, isn't it embarrassing you're losing to a team that cost 1/10 of what yours did? Every squad has that every season. It's being consistent across all of your games that is the difficult thing.
Is it not the manner of the loss when you do lose?
Well, that obviously comes into it as well. Yeah. But I don't think this, just because a team costs less than yours, don't mean you'll never lose to them and should never lose to them. Top teams, City, when they win the league, will still lose the odd game to, a Bournemouth or a Brighton or whatever.
They lost last week to Villa, who cost a lot less than their team.
Exactly. So that's always going to happen. And using a single game, I don't think is a good way to sort of analyse what an ownership does to a club.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying that, the Glazers aren't the ones playing these games, the Glazers aren't the ones doing this, then why does it matter who owns any football club? Why does it matter what City's owners are like, or what United's owners are like, or what Newcastle's owners are like? How come Newcastle was shit, mid-table, getting relegated, coming back up? Why were they like that when Mike Ashley was in charge? If your owner doesn't mean anything, if it's not your owner on the pitch, why was City a team getting relegated up and down, and now they're the best team in the world 15 years after their infinite money owners?
The funny thing is, obviously, what you can say is oil money and obviously the massive influx of money, which definitely does help and definitely fast tracks your club to success if done correctly. And what Newcastle and City have done and seem to have done is they've used the kind of the money and the extra bit of power they had to kind of put the right people in the right places.
But that's the whole point. That's exactly what you have to do.
So it's been that alongside the money, because say whatever you want about, obviously, City and corrupt as fuck football club, about the charges, etc. But the way they run the football club and the football inside is pretty perfect, is pretty seamless in the way that they've done it with the kind of the synergy between Pep and Sheikh Mansour and
people forget as well, don't they? Because people keep going on about Pep Guardiola. Mancini won a title with City. Pellegrini won a title with City. These aren't the most gifted managers you've ever seen. They won a title.
Not the worst managers.
No, but they won a title.
But
Mancini's not as good a manager as Sir Alex Ferguson. The reason he won a title when he went up against Fergie eventually was because they've got a structure there in place which helps you win things.
Yeah.
The reason Pellegrini, I'm not saying they're bad managers, I just don't think they're unbelievable that it's down to them they won the title. Because they won a title under Pellegrini, because again, and they didn't just win a title, they won a lot of other trophies and got to a Champions League semi-final because the structure was in place. Yeah. So then you throw in a Pep Guardiola to that, and it's perfect for it.
Because it is all sorts, because we're talking about the City managers and Pep, and then you're talking about Eddie Howe and with Newcastle, it's like everything fitting together, because I think even still, when you look at the Newcastle team, I personally think they've still, over the past year and a half, I think they've overachieved even with the money they've spent with some of the players that are in their team and in their squad. And then you could put that down to how the framework of the club is really good since they've got the new owners, and also Eddie Howe and how he's been tactically, and he's been a great manager in that sense. And then you've obviously got Pep and his managerial power and his ability, which is probably as good as there's ever been. And then you put that alongside the money, and then alongside a good sporting director, and then you get this almost it's dynastic, isn't it? Definitely.
But even going back to Leicester, right? Leicester didn't spend any money, but if you look at like the atmosphere on that club, the way that they all love their owner. I know they passed away, but it's still the same family. I know they got relegated eventually, but during that spell where they won the Premier League and then they won the FA Cup as well, don't forget. Like, it was like everyone was in it together. And they were like, there was a real positive atmosphere.
Yeah.
They were buying into what the owners, when they were in the Championship, spent money as well, didn't they, to get them up. And it was like a little bit of that with Newcastle.
Yeah.
Mark Ashley goes, new owners come in, yes, they spend money, but it's like the club gets a lift.
And you know what? People
like
like to pretend that those things don't matter.
Yeah.
I keep talking about this, but people pretend that confidence and feel-good factor and how much people are enjoying being at work, being in the stadium, these things improve results.
Morale.
Why do teams win more games at home? It ain't because, I know exactly how long the grass is. It's because it feels different.
Yeah.
And people want to take feeling out of football and
why
make
did
it all
everyone?
stats
Because
and
everyone,
data.
and the thing is, everyone thought, how much do these fans make and whatever. And then the COVID year, everyone's home.
Look at Liverpool lost
10 times worse.
on the spin at home. They never, in their history, they have never done that.
Yeah.
And,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or 5 on the spin it might have been. But they've never done that before in their entire 140-year history. That's not a coincidence, is it?
Because when you're talking about the feel-good
Even though the
factor as well,
Anfield atmosphere is terrible. By the way.
people kind of made the
Just getting that in. Sorry, producer Ollie, but it's true.
people make the excuse that obviously United and it's had this massive cultural issue. It does. They've had too many bad apples, too many bad professionals at the club. But then it comes to the point where, do you think United over the past 10 years have almost been this institution that's almost enabled it
Yeah.
in the way that they've treated the players? Because you can't just say put it down to wages and the amount they've earned is made this culture being so everyone seems to look at who else is earning, and it's all about ego and I should be playing, I'm better than him, and there's not really ever been this like camaraderie and feel good apart from a little spell on the Rolly. And I look at it as like, don't City players earn just as much, or why is it there any? Why don't you never heard anything negative coming out there? I think what it is it's because of when the culture has been so bad for so long. I've said I think any manager has to go above and beyond to kind of repair what United is, and I think it can't, and that's the reason why. Obviously, I'm criticising Ten Hag because I still think there's some like decisions he makes in terms of his personnel. There's some managerial stuff that I am questioning from him this season because they've been definitely like a case of worry for some stuff that I've seen, especially the fact that he's not changed it. And I thought I'm kind of baffled that we played so well with this new setup that he did against Copenhagen away for the first half an hour, and then he's not gone back to it since. That's also confused me. But I'm just comparing everything put together. Is if you've got a manager that seems to be like feeling the pressure. I think he acts as if he's not, because he's quite stone-faced and quite stony, but I think he has felt it a little bit, because you can tell by the way that he's abandoned some of his principles, and he seems to have a less of a belief in his philosophy, and he's almost searching for answers, almost like a little bit desperate. I think that all comes from like the state that the club is in general. Obviously, you surround the ownership issues, which is shite, still not being fixed, which might be delayed till January right now as well. And then you look at the way that other clubs are, and you are jealous. Obviously, Chelsea have some parallels to the way that we are at the moment, and Chelsea are actually an example of it doesn't matter how much money you spend and throw at stuff.
Yeah.
If the setup's not right, you haven't got the right type of footballing people in the right places, and there isn't like this kind of synergy between the manager and the backroom staff and the players, you still get found out and it doesn't work.
Chelsea, that's why the whole money thing pisses me off a little bit, because you think like, it's like Chelsea are the perfect example of it, and they've almost sort of fast-tracked the kind of, they've like simplified the analogy, where it's like, you compare the idea of spending £1 billion, you go into a casino, you put it all on red. That isn't the same as investing that £1 billion into businesses and people that you've studied and analysed and checked the history and you know, make a smart investment that grows over time. You've both spent £1 billion, but those two things couldn't be more different. And that's the difference with United. We're not quite as haphazard as Chelsea sticking it all on red, but we've still spent it at the poker table, where at the end of the day, it's hard to make profit. You know, you look at what City have done. They've spent it in the right way. They've got good people in to invest the money into good players. And when even people like someone like Ferran Torres, who was a failure at City, I think they've sold him for exactly what they got him for. Or maybe even a slight profit.
I think they made a little bit of money.
Like Leroy Sané, another one. Just as Pep didn't like him anymore, he was gone for a profit. Cancelo, he's gone.
Exactly, it's like any bad apples, do you know what I mean? They just get rid.
Whereas
it's so much easier when you've got everything in place and everything's right. Because when you look at us under Fergie, players would leave United after playing 8 games, and you get 3 or 4 million for him.
Yeah.
Danny Higginbottom, I think we sold him for 5 million. He played like 8 games, and back in the day where it was a little bit of change, because when you've got everything sort of in place and it's successful, and you have these players that come in and they might not be the very elite players, but like your Tom Cleverleys, your Danny Welbeck's, whatever, you know, Welbeck, and they can help you win a title, and you can sell them for, you know, when you want to sell players, you can sell them for money. There's a culture there where you're winning things and everyone wants to come to your club. You can get players that will want to come and play for you. With United lately as well, it's just the only sort of stick, the carrot a lot of the time is just wages and money. And it's like, well, we're going to pay more for, say, Paul Pogba than City we're going to pay. We're going to give Jadon Sancho more money than he's going to get anywhere else.
Exactly.
So I'm not blaming the players for taking it, but it does seem like that is all tied into this whole structural lack of it that comes from the ownership downwards.
Which is why it annoys when you see pundits and people just using the money argument. Well, the Glazers have spent money. All right, good. So what? Look at, like I said, look at Chelsea. Look at, you know, money being spent is such a, it's not arbitrary metric, because obviously typically money spent correlates with success. But it's becoming less and less relevant, really. How you spend the money is obviously more important than the amount of money you spend. That's just an insane way to look at things.
I think it's been actually been impressive by United how much, on the whole spending thing, how much United have actually been able to spend and waste on players and be this bad, because obviously from what you're saying, you can do it for a few years and it's still not come into success if you don't spend it properly. But as we have said, there is usually in football a parallel between money spent and success.
Yeah.
That's actually a definitive parallel, typically. But for some reason, United's been able to...
But do you know another reason why that correlation is there? Because the teams who are able to spend more money are the ones who have been successful to earn that money. Real Madrid aren't ever going to be outspent by, I don't know...
Girona.
Well, maybe they will these days because they're owners. But, you know, if you pick a small team, Real Vallecano or whatever, aren't ever going to outspend Real Madrid, because Real Madrid have been successful for 130 years, which is why they have more to spend in the first place. So the reason why United would, you know, have spent a lot more than a Bournemouth is because we've been successful. And, you know, typically you then carry on that success by spending more. So it's, if everyone was given the same amount of money and everyone started on a level playing field, it would be different. But one of the reasons money and success go hand in hand is because you had to have success to have the money in the first place.
When we've seen that, seems fast track that money as well. They've won the title.
Yeah.
Blackburn won a title because Jack Walker put 100 million into the club back in the day when 100 million was a lot of money. And they Blackburn won a title. Do you know what I mean? That's like ridiculous. When I was growing up, Chelsea were getting relegated. Yeah. They won a title with a record number of points and retained it.
And they won it.
I think City were a laughing stock. They got beat 8-1 off Middlesbrough just before the Sheikh Mansour took over. And they were a yo-yo club, and then they're doing trebles and winning title after title.
Yeah,
it's like, it does fast track you. I just want to get into some of the negative comments towards Erik ten Hag as well. Danny Murphy, who, let's not forget, Danny Murphy, when we appointed Erik ten Hag, said we should have gone for Gareth Southgate. So I take everything he says with a massive pinch of salt. Says the fact Bournemouth won at Old Trafford and no one is surprised tells you everything you need to know about Manchester United under Erik ten Hag. If United wants to dine at English football's top table again, ten Hag is not the manager to take them there. United just cannot compete with City, Liverpool and Arsenal with the players they have under ten Hag. Now listen, I've sort of dismissed Danny Murphy as, you know, someone you shouldn't listen to, but he's not the only one making those comments, to be fair with him. Other people will be looking at it and going, look how far they are off City, Liverpool and even Arsenal. But I kind of think, for me, it feels a little bit like an argument of trying to stick with this manager a bit.
Yeah.
When you're saying, Arsenal, you're nowhere near Arsenal. Arsenal finished 5th, 8th and 8th. I know they won the FA Cup in Arteta's first half a season, but he stuck with him when other teams would have gone, nah, this guy's not doing anything. And now they're reaping the benefit.
And the only reason they stuck with him is because of the, 15 years of absolute up and down shit that they'd had. I know they'd won a few FA Cups, but Emery didn't get the same benefit that Arteta did. And it's not that Emery's not a good manager. It's because sometimes you have to get to a point where you go, actually, we stuck with Wenger for too long, probably. Yeah. And then, and then we got Emery in, didn't give him enough time because we wanted him to do what Wenger did in the 90s and it didn't work. Actually, we probably need to take a few years to let this sort itself out. Maybe we're at that point with United, like I said at the start of the podcast. We realised that, that same cycle maybe isn't going to work.
I think it goes beyond that, no? I think it goes beyond that because obviously when you look at it that, like, simply in terms of Arsenal finished 5th, 8th and 8th, and it was true. Sometimes they had really poor spells under Arteta, and they sticked with him.
Yeah.
I think if you look back to it though, and I think this has a lot to do with sometimes whether a manager is stuck with, because we've seen it recently a bit with the recent run of form by Ange for Tottenham is, I think it's all about optics at the same time.
Cool.
I think with Arsenal, when they were in that poor run of form, I feel like people could still see that they could see what Arteta was trying to do, if you get what I'm saying. Like, even though it wasn't always working and they had players like Mustafi and shit, and they were like the same way we have some poor players making mistakes, making errors, and they were Kolasinac or whatever, they could still, you could see that Arteta had like an idea and a direction of something he was trying to build. So I think that's what saved him, and that's why they've stuck with him, and now they're reaping the benefits. People may argue that, like, with what we've seen from Ten Hag in the last 18 months, even though we've had third last season and we had the Carabao Cup win, that the optics aren't great. It's almost like we don't know what direction Ten Hag's going in, what is his style of play, and he's kind of leaving everyone a little bit puzzled, and I think that's the difference. Whereas it's the same way, look at Tottenham's results in the past 5-6 games. They've been poor, but optically everyone's saying, you can see there's a style of there's a style, seems to be like this synergy with the team. They look like they have a feel-good factor about them. And that sometimes can have a difference where it feels like the players were behind Arteta, the players were behind Ange, but with you kind of having to even debate this season whether the players are behind Ten Hag. So it's I think there's more to it than just like, Arsenal finished.
There was a lot of, to be fair though,
there
was a lot of Arsenal fans, I remember saying they didn't know what he was trying to do.
Yeah, but
like, they would go, like, they were like, literally, what is this guy trying to do when they were losing, like...
I don't know, Arsenal fans aren't the smartest though.
No, that's true.
That is true. They're really reactionary, and because I remember you're right. How often were they like Arteta out?
Yeah, like
all the time. It was trendy. People were selling T-shirts with it.
Yeah, and now they're acting like we stuck with our manager. No, the club did.
The club
did. I get your point.
Yeah, the club, yeah.
But like the fans didn't. Do you know what I mean? And it's like that's natural. I remember fans wanted Fergie out. Do you know what I mean? Pete Molyneux, he signed all that. It happens if you lose matches, even if you got something you're trying to do. Yeah. People go, I can't sit here and watch us get beat off Bournemouth at home. This is horrible. Yeah. So I understand that point, but I just feel like, with Ten Hag, I worry I would stick with him. I just worry that we could be running out of time. I don't know. We've got another little bit of a story that came out today. I think Ornstein had this. David Ornstein had it earlier. That Andy Martial contract is not being extended. We've got some stats here for you when it comes to Andy Martial. 8 years at United, including one at loan at Sevilla. 317 games for United. I think he's averaged just 60 minutes per game across his whole playing career. Goals and assists, I think he's got 90 goals, 55 assists, is it? The trouble you've got with Martial is it's not just numbers. Like, we said this the other week, you can compare the numbers of someone like Martial and Rashford. I know they're slightly different, like Rashford's slightly better, but not a million miles away. With someone like, say, a Mark Hughes, and they're not that dissimilar, but the difference is the performances you got with Mark Hughes, the trophies he won, how he fitted in the team, and the times he turned up in massive games and won us those trophies. So it doesn't quite give you the full thing with the stats. One thing you can say with Martial, and I think it's come to the front more so this season than even any other season, is, you talk about optics. It doesn't look great when you're watching him. It doesn't look great. I was chatting to my missus at the weekend who went to the game. She took my little girl, and she was saying that when Martial got subbed, he walked in front of them, and he was walking, he had his back to the goal, and United had a chance, and the crowd were all like cheering or not cheering, and the player when he's walking will always look over his shoulder.
He didn't look.
He's not bothered. Like, I know that's not like a scientific proof that he don't care, but players always want to see.
Even if you're walking past a game that you're not playing, and you hear that, you think something special might be happening. Even if you just like football, you just quickly have a glance.
And it was like he didn't bother looking back because I just think he was like kind of just like, I'm not that fussed.
He's very blasé, isn't it? Yeah. But he's underwhelmed and achieved quite a lot, especially with the potential he had. I think the worst thing that ever happened, other than his injuries and maybe him just not having the mentality for it, is I think him transitioning from a winger to a centre forward and bulking up a bit ruined him.
Do you reckon?
I think Martial's best attribute and best ability was always on the ball, that kind of dribbling and that inside left channel.
Like his debut
when he was quick. I think that's where
I was looking at some pictures of him because I can't remember. I was putting him on a thumbnail or I was making a graphic. Anyway, basically, I was just googling pictures of him. I was by myself. I was naked. I was in the
Sorry, you don't have to justify it.
Yeah.
We've all Googled pictures of Anthony Martial when we're at home.
Just don't come in. No, I wasn't doing that. But I was looking at pictures of him, and obviously he looks younger from the pictures when he first signed, but he looks so much slimmer. Like his arms are slimmer, his neck is slimmer, his face is slimmer. Like you said, he's bulked up and he's become a striker. And his numbers are worse than they've ever been.
Lost his explosion, became more injury prone. And
the injuries don't help, do they?
I think I used to say, even when people used to play him, because obviously he's a good finisher for the most part.
Yeah, very good finisher.
But I also believed, so everyone thought, he must be a striker because he has a bit of height to him as well. But I never, ever bought into Martial being a centre forward. I thought he was always the left inside winger, left winger, and that was where he was best. And obviously that's not an excuse for him. And I think him making that change to a centre forward was the worst thing that happened. Bulking up was the worst thing that happened. Obviously the injuries, but also his kind of mentality to be the best that he could as well.
Yeah, I think to be a number 9 for Manchester United, you've got to have a certain, like you say, mentality there.
Yeah.
Where you got the confidence, you got the ego, you got the determination as well. Though you have to have that, and sometimes it does look like it is lacking. And I hate sort of questioning players' attitudes because I know a lot of them make sacrifices that I would never have made. But you've got to look at what you see. What are we seeing here? We've seen someone who looks like they're engaged and trying their hardest. Someone's like they've got a gun. Someone's got a gun to their head.
One thing I will say in his defence is, in any job, wherever you work, I know you're getting paid 200 grand a week or whatever to not do this. So, I accept that argument. If you were underachieving and being criticised, not living up to your potential, not doing the things that you know you're capable of for 4 years in a row, it's hard to stay motivated in that job. That is really difficult. Like, not just have you not got to where you thought you'd be. Let's say you wanted the manager's job. A lot of people will work at a place, apply for the manager's job, not get it, and quit, and go to another place. Let alone go for that job. I want to be the first choice striker at United. Not get it. Okay, try again. Not get it. Try again. Okay, now I'm out on loan. Now I've scored 7 goals in a season. Now I've scored 9, and I'm back up to Weghorst. Now I'm on the 4th season. I've got a 19-year-old who's barely played a fucking game in his life to come in ahead of me. It is hard to stay motivated for years on end in any job.
Because he knows the writing's on the wall. But I think that was one of the
But what about when he went to Sevilla though as well?
But that's the point. So
he did it there.
Well, that's true, and obviously there's a part of his personality that tends towards that anyway.
Yeah.
But the main problem for me is United shouldn't have kept him this long.
I agree.
Fact that he's going to get to the end of his contract, it's not like the big news this morning, United aren't going to do the optional +1 on him. Like, why is he getting to the end of his contract?
Because if he got that +1, he would have been eligible for a testimonial.
He won't have had a testimonial.
But we should have sold him. We should have sold him 2 years ago.
Phil
and he
Jones
could be
was eligible.
doing different things with different things with his career. He could be thriving somewhere else. He could be rebuilding his career.
Do you know what? Right, the Sevilla one was for me the last chance for him to really sort of do something, because it's almost unheard of that you loan out a 25-year-old striker, whatever he was at the time, who's a season and a half ago dropped 22 goals, whatever it was. Like, you loan him out. That's crazy. That never happens. And we did that. Sevilla pulled out all the stops in terms of praising him, socials. Lopetegui, I think, was the manager, was saying, like, he's going to be my guy. They were in a title race. And after his first game, the manager called him out. I'm saying he needs to up his game because I'm not accepting that here.
And that, Jay, was 2 seasons ago. Like, this is the thing. Someone in the comments, Sim says, any job you get a verbal, written and final warning and you get the sack. Exactly. Obviously, we're not going to sack him. But he should have gone through this process of, is he good enough to do what we need him to do? No. Is he performing on a backup level? No. We get rid of him. It should be that simple.
Well, I think what Gary Neville said about him on the overlap might have been a bit of credence, and it was true, where he said he should have never been here this long, but he felt like United for the whole time. I've been worried about his, which is not the right kind of regime to have towards transfers, worried about his potential. So United were worried. I think United have always been worried because Martial's always been one of these players where he's got a bit of talent and ability, and you always think
in another world
there's something there. Something could happen. I think United were worried about selling him to another club and him fulfilling that.
Well, there's always been this rumour that Joe Glazer loves him, hasn't there? I don't know if it's true.
Like, Jose wanted rid, and Joe Glazer like, you are not selling Martial.
But I don't know.
Wait, they watch the games?
They get the updates.
They plays him, use him on FIFA.
So like players.
Yeah. They got the update from the Sheffield United game where he got an hat-trick, and that was it then. Like, they love
Do you
him.
know what I mean? So I don't know because
They saw the FA Cup semi-final against Everton. They watched that one.
I mean, there was rumours, wasn't there?
I don't know if it's
that
true.
he saw Martial as our Pele. That's according to reports from a few years ago.
I don't even think Joe Glazer knows who Pele is.
No.
To be honest with you.
Nah, I think it's really.
Graziano Pele, I mean.
Yeah, that's what.
He used to play for, what was it, Southampton?
Yeah, he saw it. Did he play against us?
That's
in
he
the League
probably
Cup
is
final?
our Graziano Pele.
Yeah,
actually.
like I don't know.
But
Before we wrap up, go on. Sorry.
No, go on, say it.
Before we wrap up, I want to do Wally of the Week.
Fucking hell.
This is where we name someone who's been a Wally of the Week, and do you know what I mean? I can't think of anyone
I was going to say what you're going to
Do you know
say.
what I
Then.
mean? And there's no one who springs to mind for me. Like, honestly,
For you,
Yeah.
this week, on and offline, has been an absolute walk in the park.
it
Isn't
has, man. It's just been.
Business
It's one of
as
those.
usual.
Yesterday was so sort of chilled, and it was my daughter's birthday, and I just enjoyed it and relaxed. So yeah, I can't think of anyone who stands out for me as Wally of the Week. Go on, I'll let you two go first. I'll see if I can think of anyone. No one I want to give airtime to anyway. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Wally of the Week. I mean, actually, it's not Wally of the Week, but remember last week when I said our rivals getting last-minute goals all the time?
Yeah.
Happened again this week twice, didn't it?
Yeah.
Absolute dickheads.
Oh, do you know what? I
who-
haven't got one actually. Yeah, you just reminded me.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
And City.
Yeah.
Do you know who's Wally of the Week for me?
I was convinced Arsenal were going to do it as well when you watched.
It's the powers that be, Pugmol, whatever they're called. Is it Nicholas Jackson who's had his hands round someone's throat?
Yeah.
No further action. Don't worry about it. Where was this energy for Casemiro when he was getting banned for grabbing Will Hughes by the scruff of the neck? It's just the inconsistency, man. It just winds me up. That's my Wally of the Week. Go on.
I would have Wally of the Week. That, do you know what I mean? But if I could, I'm just gonna say. Nah, I can't say him. I'm gonna.
You can do what you want, Wally. You're
Nah,
the
I
fuzz.
can't for beefing John Shinn. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna say that.
Oh, all right, yeah.
Not gonna say that.
Nah, I don't know what other ones.
I'm gonna say just all Arsenal fans. I could say this every because I think
All Arsenal fans.
I love that.
all Arsenal fans just for their reaction and crying and whimpering about any time they lose a game. It's a PGMO agenda against them. Notwithstanding that they've had several VAR decisions actually go their way. Do you know what I mean?
you know
So
what?
it's like
I've got another one actually. Go on.
obviously they've complained about the Havertz handball and so what happens is anytime that Arsenal lose a game now, they look at any of the VAR or half and half decisions that they had that probably could have gone either way or probably was the correct decision, apart from the Newcastle one that was dodge, and they blame that for the loss, and they've kind of built this narrative now that the Premier League's out to get
But
them.
that's being
and Pajum.
driven by their manager.
Yeah, it is.
He
Massively.
couldn't have
Yeah.
less accountability. Every time they lose, he's screaming, he's crying, he's fucking bawling his eyes out, and it's someone else's fault. And that drips down to the players, that drips down to the fans, and maybe overall that creates this idea of, we're great and keeps the confidence. Maybe it works, but from the outside looking in, you look like a spoilt brat and someone who's slightly out of touch with
exactly,
reality.
because on him we missed out on an easy one of the week. Fucking Klopp
With that interview.
Klopp with that interview.
Nah, do you know what?
What a
That's
clown.
fine. Yeah, he got me numbers.
He's a
on Twitter,
prop.
though,
He's
so
a
I don't mind.
Yeah, it's a proper. He's a.
Hey, that's all I care
Nah,
about.
Klopp's a proper bad muppet, innit? He's a weird.
He's
he's a weirdo.
like it's horrible because there's nothing there. The interview. I get it if the interview asks a stupid question or is rude. You know when like everyone used to speak to Emery and start the interview going good evening, and I think that's just a knobhead thing to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's no need for that.
It's it's weird. But
Like, why are you doing that?
And the thing is with Liverpool fans as well, they like see this man as a god. So he's never been any wrong. So like
You know
he's
what?
blatant.
It could have been different, though.
He's blatantly.
I would have had him at United.
Yeah.
Like we'd be the same as them now. We'd be
think?
backing him, of course. We'd be like,
Oh, if he was our manager now,
dude, like
yeah,
we'd be getting. Do you know what I mean? And like, one of them. No, we've got Erik tonight. and he's
Nasty
better.
man, bro.
He
He
is
is that.
nasty. And do you know another one I was going to mention while we're on it? Callum Wilson. What's up with him?
That was good.
Like the keeper gave him a funny look, pulled a face, so he lost his head.
Yeah.
And then he's acting like it's the most egregious thing anyone's ever done. And I think, hang on a minute, have you got any self-awareness of who you're playing for? What are you on about?
And also, you saw as well him laughing along to, who was it, Mikel Antonio slagging off Joe Linton on that podcast.
They just
So
got
like the
no...
idea of like disrespecting a fellow
Yeah.
professional isn't one that is completely off limits to him.
No.
And yet when a keeper walks past and goes, He can't bear it. Oh my God! A goalkeeper's pulled a face at me.
Newcastle, honestly,
didn't think it was like Pickford had a bit of a scrap with, was it Bruno after the game as well? I think Bruno Gomares and Pickford was at it.
I mean, the Geordies have just got this thing, haven't they, where it's like they feel proper hard done by, and it's like
chip on the shoulder.
Yeah, and I thought, again,
bag of chips on the shoulder.
Nice.
I've got a few more super chats for you, Jay.
Go on, I love a super chat.
Silly little sausage.
Nice.
Matt Wicks says 3 years of membership, or 36 months. That's very good.
That's ledge.
He says it's all worth it, so I can say that Jay and Erik Ten Hag has a bald head like an egg. Up the paddock. Forgive me, Jay. Is that all right?
That's what my kids always say, man, about my head. Go on.
Jalapeno says, spelt like that, H-A-L-A-P-E-N-Y-O. Says, there's a mentality problem with our players. Changing manager won't change that, at least not in the short term. We should give Ten Hag time. And in contrast to that, Burnside is back. Says, still don't know what you're seeing. His goal difference with Man United is around +10. Wait till after the weekend, could be -10. Ole spent less. Go look his goal difference up. He's not the problem, but he's not the answer. Unfortunately, when you go, you look at a football team, goal difference is obviously a factor, but trophies and other things are far more ahead of goal difference, aren't they, really?
Yeah.
It's not good, and I completely agree with that. And on the goal difference front, I was looking before, United's last 5 games against Liverpool, and this is so bad. United's last 5 games against Liverpool.
Let me work it out. Let me see if I can do this for you. Right.
4 and against.
4 and against, right. Yeah. So we won one at Old Trafford. We won one at Old Trafford 2-1, yeah? Yeah?
You said you're going to work it out.
So we won one at Old Trafford 2-1. Let's focus on that.
Okay.
We lost 7-0. So what's that? That's 8 plus -8. We lost, like the season before, I think we lost 9-0 on aggregate.
Correct.
So that's 17, -17.
Yeah.
And then what was the one before that one?
We lost 4-2 Old Trafford.
4-2 Old Trafford. Yeah. So that's a -2. So that's -19, is it?
Yeah. Well, so they scored, since in the last 5 games, they've scored 21 and we've scored 4.
The mental thing,
3, sorry, we've scored 3.
The mental thing about that is we've actually won a game.
I know.
Like that could, that's the only crazy thing about that.
So yeah, minus 18.
I think if we get battered by Liverpool,
is he done?
There's trouble.
Do you think he's done?
Because there's certain results that are bigger than others, and Liverpool, you can't. It can't be a battering.
Do you think he's done if he loses badly against Liverpool?
I think he's on thin ice. I think he's on.
So no, he'll survive.
If it's like a 4-5-0, I think he's in trouble. I don't want to say he's.
I'm not saying you want him. I'm saying, do you think the board would act and sack him if we got beat again 5-0 or whatever by the Scousers?
I think if we got beat by Bayern, go out and then get smashed by Liverpool, I think he's gone. Right.
I'm not saying you want that. That's not my point. I'm just curious as whether you think, because I think it could be. I agree with you. I think if he loses badly against Liverpool, the board will just go.
And losing to Bayern.
I'm losing to Bayern, yeah. And I don't want that, but I fear the worst. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I potentially agree. I think the only thing that would stop it is the fact that Jim Ratcliffe's going to be like, fucking just wait for me to get there. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, don't open the beers until I'm at the party. Tom Hartland with a super chat. Shite weekend for football, but the Lord of the Rings gig on Sunday softened the blow. Was quality to meet you, Joe, at the Paddock. Good to meet you.
Yeah, little Lord
I
of
went
the
to
Rings
little
thing.
Lord of the Rings,
Such a busy little bastard, you are.
Lord of the Rings and beyond. There's a little orchestra and that.
So you've gone from DJing to orchestras and that. Was you conducting?
I was at the front, yeah.
Yeah, good luck.
No, I wasn't. I haven't got the requisite receding hairline and shoulder length perm to be an orchestra conductor, which they've all got, by the way.
That was way too specific.
Jalapeno 2 says United has had way too many injuries this season. Why do people ignore that? But it's the headline excuse given to Newcastle and Spurs, etc. And Glenn F17, who's been member for 33 months, thank you very much, says, I'm behind Ten Hag. He's playing who we don't want in Maguire. And who he doesn't want in Maguire and McTominay, and we can't use Onana as a sweeper keeper because of this. So stick with Ten Hag, up the Reds and up the Paddock.
Just talking about Paddock before we wrap up, we're going to be in Dublin on the 28th of December.
So excited for this.
Me, Joe, Steve, Macca, and Wes Brown, and a little cameo from Uncle Webby. Come down to Dublin if you can. It's at the Red Cow on the 28th of December. There's a link in description. We appreciate all your support. We'll have a good laugh. We'll meet all you guys. We'll have a chat. We'll have a drink and that. So come down if you can do. And also a big thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring this podcast. Ronnie, it's always a pleasure. My brother, are you here tomorrow for the watch along?
Yeah,
Oh, there you go then. You got the big ones out here then. And you and Ronnie, who else is with you?
Joe McGrath's going to be knocking about.
Listen, it's all happening. So
it's all happening, mate.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on that. The preview With me and Joe will be out first thing in the morning.
First thing.
That's been Joe Smith. That's been Ronaldo Brown. I've been Jay Moy. This has been the Paddock Podcast. Thanks for watching.